Facebook, from YouTube, and from LinkedIn, as well as Zoom. So let me get going here. All right. Word to cloud. There we go. We're officially started, people.
All righty.
All right, good. All right. So welcome to what we're calling the Licensing Playbook Live. We're streaming every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, and 8 Eastern. Yes, that sounds like I'm announcing a TV show or something. Um, my name is, although who watches TV shows in a regular
I know.
time period anymore, right? With Netflix and Hulu and everything. We are streaming. My name is, sorry, I hate reading scripts. Don't you guys hate scripts? I hate scripts. My name is Andrew Krauss. I co-founded inventRight with Stephen Key over 25 years ago to help inventors license and sell their products. This weekly webinar is your go-to guide for learning how to license your product ideas to companies that are actively looking for innovation, which is most companies these days, not all, but most. Each week, we're going to break down real-world strategies and the exact steps you need to take to get in the front door of companies and get heard. You'll learn how to pitch with confidence, avoid common mistakes, and dramatically increase your chances of landing a licensing deal. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box or by digitally raising your hand here on Zoom. If you're joining us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube Live, simply type your questions into the chat on those platforms so we can unmute you and you can ask your questions here on Zoom. If you're on those platforms, you need to just type in your question. I can't unmute you if you're live on the other platforms and not on Zoom. Our other co-founder, Stephen Key, has taken the day off, but I have Dana and Chad. Raise your hand. They're from our outreach team. They're going to be joining myself today and contribute to the conversation. Today's topic is learn how to file intellectual property. Intellectual property, guys, just a fancy way of saying patents. It's actually more than patents. Intellectual property is patents, copyrights, and trademarks, but we're talking about patents tonight. Learn how to file intellectual property that is valuable to your licensee. As the inventor, you're the licensor, and the company is the licensee if you want to get fancy, right? So I like to break down these terms. Intellectual property tonight, patents. Licensee, the company you sell your idea to, okay? So learn how to file intellectual property that is valuable to your licensee and doesn't break the bank. I'm going to get things started with the most important tip of the night, and then there's a lot of important tips tonight, so don't leave after I give you the most important tip. And and then we'll involve Dana and Chad. I know Dana has a bunch to share, and Chad will probably comment on some of the stuff I'm sharing too. So once again, you can type your questions into the chat. You can digitally raise your hand, or you can just do this if you got a question. All right, so the biggest tip of the night is having a point of difference. So your product needs to have a point of difference. All of you believe that your product has a point of difference as opposed to other products in the marketplace. Some of you believe that and you didn't do your research, and people tell me an idea. I'm like, I think that exists. And I Google it and I'm like, there it is. And they're like, how'd you find that? I'm like, I don't know. I found it in like 30 seconds. But providing you've done your market research and your product has a point of difference, what you want to do is you want to protect that marketing point of difference, right? So one of the things I was just sharing in the master's class, some of you were on that master's class for our students, I just got off an hour-long webinar and now I'm doing another hour-long webinar. I love doing these. But you're not patenting your invention. I love saying that to shock people. You're not patenting your invention. You're patenting a piece of it, a certain feature of it that has a certain benefit that prevents other people from offering that certain benefit that makes your product unique. So people are all proud of, I patented my invention. I'm like, well, what's your key point of difference? And so the first point I want to make here, which is the most important, is that you want to look at your marketing and you want to say, what's my key point of difference? And you want to protect that key point of difference. Your patent is freaking useless. That's not a swear word, right? If you're not protecting that key point of difference that's in the marketing. So that's what they're buying. That's what they want to pay you for. That's what the company wants to pay you for. That's what consumers want to buy. You've got to protect that. So if there's this certain hinge that makes your product unique and other people can't do it, well, that's what you're selling in the marketing. That's what the company's selling in the marketing. And that's what you want to protect with the patent. And a lot of people, I know it's really basic, but a lot of people aren't doing that. So don't lose sight of that. You gotta protect your key point of difference. Does anybody have any questions on that? Dana, does that make sense? I know it's really basic, but it's nice. Inventors like, do you ever have an inventor, Dana, that says to you, like, they're just so proud. I got a patent. I got a patent. I'm like, well, what are you protecting in the patent? And they're like, no, I got a patent. It's like, I protected my idea. No, you didn't. If you're not clear and they got a patent from the attorney and they're not clear on what's actually protected and what's not. Have you experienced that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I experience it all the time that people, for the most part, what I experience, and I'm guilty of it, coming up with an idea and hearing you're showing it to people and people are saying, you need to patent that. And I'm like, so I ran out to an attorney and I hired an attorney and paid a bunch of money and never got a patent. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it sometime. Uh, but my experience and what I kind of want to touch on is, when do you file the protection? That's probably the bigger thing. Like the first idea that I came up with, and I don't know where I got the idea. I did not read Stephen Key's book yet. I hadn't listened to no YouTube. And I went out and I found I had my brother actually help me write a provisional patent application, and I filed it. And I was so proud of myself that I filed this provisional patent application and I announced it to everybody that I have patent pending status on my product. But then it's like, now what do I do? I learned that I filed it way too early. And that's not really the first thing. Now I know that's not really the first thing that I should have done. I should have done the way inventRight teaches you. There's a reason that filing that provisional patent application is not the first step in our 10-step program.
No, it's absolutely
Yeah.
not. And,
Yeah.
I think that the ideal time, this isn't what most of you did, but for your next project, I would do this. The ideal time to file a provisional patent that's going to have, because the topic tonight is how to file patents that have value to the licensee, the company you're trying to sell it to, is after you've done all the research and all the other products out there, you've made your list of companies. Because when you make your list of companies that you want to approach, that kind of proves to me you've really done your research and you looked at all the products. And even maybe playing around with a prototype, oh, it could be done like this, or it could be done like that, or just thinking about it. And then before you reach out to companies, that is the time to file your provisional patent, or for some of you, file the patent. But to do that, the second you come up with an idea without having done your research, without having figured out what company is going to reach out to, you're probably going to be missing a lot. I agree with Dana. Now, if you're using our software or to file a provisional, or you're just filing on your own, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a bit of a waste of time. So if you've only spent literally $65, the patent office filing fee, and you didn't pay $2,000 or $3,000 to have an attorney file a provisional for you, no big deal. You can do all your research. You can make your list of companies. You can play around all the different ways this product could be done, and then you can file another provisional. Not the end of the world. But what a lot of you have done is you filed a full utility patent. You filed a provisional and paid some attorney $2,000 or $3,000 to do it. Definitely the wrong order. Now, if you've already done that, fine. But the main thing you want to do is go, well, are my claims protecting the most important selling benefits that are unique to my invention? And so this is one thing that you should do. And this is another tip that I was going to give, and I'm just going to give it now. When you have an attorney, a lot of you will file a provisional patent. And then later you'll file utility. Maybe you get a company interested, you threw everything in the kitchen sink in the provisional, and you're like, I'm ready to have an attorney file a patent for me. You should give them your marketing material. Now, a lot of people will reach out to a patent attorney. No marketing material. Patent attorneys suck at understanding products. I'm just going to say it. They suck at it. They're not marketing people. They're like engineer type oriented people. So they would be a lot better off looking at a marketing piece. Because if you show them the marketing piece, the sell sheet or the video, and you go, oh, you see that? That I have to protect that hinge. I got to protect this over here. So the best way for you to protect your invention and provide the most value to your potential licensee that you're going to sell it to is show your patent attorney the marketing piece. Show the key things that make your product different than everybody else and go, I have to protect this. I have to protect that. Okay. Now, then they're going to go ahead and write the patent. Don't trust them. Don't trust them one bit. Okay. They're going to write it and they're going to write these claims, of which are hard to understand. Most patent attorneys, if they write good claims, you're going to be able to easily understand it. 90% of them don't do that. So, and then you'll say, oh, great. Okay, I read it through. I read it through like 5 times. I got these claims. Okay, remember? Here's my marketing piece. I said, I need to protect this hinge. I need to protect that. I need to protect that. Show me each one of the claims in the patent you've written. Show me where you're protecting these things. Most of you, if you've already filed, because a lot of you file utility patents before you come to us because you didn't realize there was a provisional or you just thought it was the right thing to do, and it's perfectly fine. But most of you have not done that. How many of you did that? My guess is 0 of you did that. Now, some of you, maybe your attorney was good and you articulated it well, but very few of you probably showed your marketing materials and then verified, okay, where did you hit those main key selling points, benefits with the claim? Show me the claim. Show me you covered it. I bet none of you did that. Now, no big deal if you didn't. Your patent attorney probably did a decent job anyway. But that's a really good way of holding your patent attorney accountable. And so for any new patents you file, I would recommend that you do that. Does anybody have questions? You can type them into the chat, or you can digitally raise your hand, or just physically. I can't see all the pages of everybody on here, so I might not see you if you're just physically raising your hand.
Oh, I do want to share though, if anybody glazes over when Andrew starts talking about patents, I'm right with you because I do not understand patents. I don't want anything to do with them. If I want to get a patent on something, I would be going out and hiring a good lawyer, not just anybody willy-nilly. I would talk to somebody who's Stephen or Andrew. Who would you recommend? Use somebody, find out from somebody, because I'll tell you, I'll share my experience with my patent attorney. He was big. It was huge law firm. Thought it's a huge law firm. How can I go wrong? Well, there was $12,000 later. I didn't pay him $12,000. I only paid him $6,000, but I couldn't get in touch with him. He was never in the office. He kept sending me bills. I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know what he was doing. So, and I do share this openly, is that how I dealt with that. And I heard from another attorney who was a patent attorney who went to my inventors group, because it's great to network with other inventors, that it was unfair what he was doing. And so I called the West Virginia bar and I called my attorney and I said, which I never talked to. So I told the receptionist, I have Form XYZ in front of me, and if I don't want any money back, but he needs to stop working on it right now and give me paid in full. And he did. And I had a certified letter that came to me, paid in full, and he was done. Because no attorney, and I'm not saying to do that, I'm just saying that was my experience.
Yeah,
I don't understand anything about
I like
patent
that.
law.
I like that I think there's an important lesson here Dana's sharing with you. I would say probably 95% of you do not need to go with a firm.
No.
A firm will charge you top dollar corporate prices and you'll be the last priority on their list. Now, the only time that I think it makes sense to hire a firm, like a really impressive firm, if you got a new energy invention, you're going to run a car off a liter of gas forever, or it's a really advanced invention, or an industry where they really are obsessed with patents, sometimes medical devices and certain things, there can be a benefit in some rare cases to
Mhm.
hire a firm. So when they look at the patent, they're like, oh, that firm filed that. I'm not going to say it's never going to make sense to do that. It does make sense sometimes. But, Dana's product was super simple.
Oh yeah.
There was no need whatsoever for her to go to a large firm, complete.
No, and what had happened was after then I had joined inventRight and I started to get educated and I really like when I went the lawyer's job is to if I go in there and say I want to hire you to get a patent for me, that's his job. I hired him to do that. I'm not blaming him really or that firm. I'm blaming my own ignorance that I didn't know any better because I
Right.
wasn't educated. And it's like going to a doctor. If you go in and I have a sore shoulder and the doctor's looking at my ankle, may want to question what are you doing, right? So we really have to, and it's difficult as inventors that we almost have to be, our own advocate to ask a lot of questions.
So what
What are
did you
we
not like
doing?
about this guy? He wouldn't talk to you. He'd only do email or something?
He not even he just kept well he said yeah I can get this patented and then through the process he just kept sending me like all these letters and forms and I couldn't understand them and every time I called he was never there. He was local in my town. I stopped at the office. He could never see me, but I kept getting bills and I was paying, and it just got to a point where I was sick and tired of being ignored. I got it. You know what I got for $6,000? I got a trademark. And then
Really?
when I
Wow.
said to him, the kicker was after I got educated, because now I'm in inventRight, I'm learning about everything. And I remember calling him, I remember calling him up, and this was one of the last times. I mean, I did talk to him periodically, but it was like very few times. And I said, I'm thinking that maybe I should get a design patent. And he says, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And I thought, well, why didn't you tell me that to begin with?
He's like, I'll just sell you whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I'm gonna say a dirty word now, guys. I'm gonna use a dirty word.
Okay.
It's a dirty word that attorneys love. It's called billable hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Dirty word. And that's what was going on there. Hey, I'll send her
But
this, I'll send her
but
that. I'll bill her
what's
15
really
minutes here, 30 minutes here.
yeah,
You
every
know,
email, every phone call, every message,
yeah.
everything you get billed for, and the bill was outrageous, like I said. But what really amazes me is that attorney never said to me, "Well, let's file a provisional patent application first. I can do that for $1,500 or 2,000." He never. That's where we come in, where we have to be very savvy and smart. We don't need to know how to write patents. We don't need to know that stuff, but we do need to be smart about when is a big thing is when do we write the provisional patent? And Andrew already addressed that. Writing the provisional patent after you have the product, you've made a homemade somewhat prototype, you've used it, you understand how it works, or at least you've done some kind of really deep dive into your product, because you got to put that information in there. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't there has
And
to be
you've looked at
someone
all the
underneath
other
it.
products in the marketplace. It's really
Yeah.
key. It
Yeah.
really is.
And then doing all that work, finding other companies with other products, finding the companies that you potentially might want to reach out, looking at everything out there, and then writing the provisional patent application, not writing the provisional patent application the very first thing when it comes into your head. Because
Yeah.
I always say about
Now,
prototypes, we talked about them last week. As you build the prototype and as you play with the prototype, it is going to change over time.
right. Or
It is never going to
it's
work
gonna
the way you think it's
change.
going to work in your head the
It's
first time.
gonna change when you become familiar with all the other products in the space of your invention, which a lot of inventors don't do. It's gonna change.
Yeah.
Now, I want to share another tip with you guys because the focus today is creating intellectual property, a patent in this case, that is going to provide value to your potential licensee, the company you sell your idea to or rent it to. That's what licensing is, renting your idea, not selling it.
I think you got a
So
hand up too, Andrew.
here's what's that, Chad?
Got a
Yeah,
hand up too.
Stephanie has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Stephanie next.
Yep.
So be patient, Stephanie. I'll get to you in just a sec. Yeah, she's patient. She's great. I know Stephanie. She's my buddy. So one thing that can happen, which is kind of illustrated by Dana's story, Some patent attorneys, Eric was on the master's class for his students, and I talked about this a little bit. I feel bad for him. He needs to hear all this stuff twice. Some patent attorneys will look at your invention, and it's just very clear that it's not a patentable idea, but they just want to get money out of you one way or another. So they're going to say, well, let's do a design patent. Because a design patent is literally just a picture. You can almost always get it. But the big question you need to ask yourself, because today's webinar is about creating value, a good patent for your intellectual property that's going to protect you, that's going to impress the potential licensee. If you're one of these inventors that got, I'm going to say it, victimized by a patent attorney or patent agent that looks at your invention, and just because they say this doesn't mean you got victimized. I'm going to explain this. So they go, well, this isn't patentable. You can't get a utility patent. Let's do a design patent. Now, the attorney will fall into one of two camps. They suggested a design patent because the design patent would actually protect the invention. He looked at it or she looked at it and said, you know, this is actually a good use for a design patent. It would actually protect you to some extent. Some of them will just tell you get a design patent, and it really, I see this all the time. I see design patents that patent attorneys filed for the inventor. I'm like, how is this protecting anything? They'll get it because a design patent, this is like a little charger for my cell phone. It attaches here, okay? So let's say the way it looks, the shape of it would protect the invention in one shape, one way or another. So design patents can be very useful. But the question is, because the subject tonight is, how do you create a patent that provides value to your potential licensee? I see inventors that have design patents and the attorney filed it for them just because the inventor's like, I want to get a patent. The inventor doesn't know the difference between a design patent, utility patent. The patent attorney's like, I can get you a patent. Well, let's do a design. They're like, okay. And they don't know the difference. And they don't understand if it's a design patent that has value or a design patent that's worthless. Okay. So just want to bring that up. Does it have value? Always ask the attorney, how is this design patent protecting my idea if I can't get a utility? Eric was on there. We had a woman that showed a very clever use of a design patent for a pre-roll joint. You know, she had already filed it. She actually held it up on the meeting and showed it. But she also had a utility. Sometimes you can do both. Most of you, 95% of you, are just doing a utility or just doing a provisional patent, which is a utility. Rarely is a design going to make sense, but it can make sense. So now let's let Stephanie ask her question.
Okay. I asked my question in the comments section and Dana kind of responded. But let's say you get your provisional patent filed and you go into a company and you pitch them your product and they seem like they want a patented product. They hold a bunch of patents themselves. When you get into the licensing part, when do you find out if your product is actually gonna be able to get a utility patent?
You don't. You don't
You
most of
don't.
the time. And so
Okay.
and any company that is innovative and wants to move forward with innovative products, they're going to be okay with patent pending.
Okay.
There's no
Okay.
guarantee that any company, so this is about creating value, any company that says, oh no, it's pending, come on back when it's issued. Really? So
Yeah.
they're going to want you to want to wait 1 to 3 years for it to issue,
Right.
which is what it takes. When you file a patent, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years about for a patent to issue. The product may not even make sense anymore at that point. So any company that says that to you, it's not your direct question, but it's a side comment that's important. Oh no, we only accept issued patents. Well, that's what I think about that to them.
And
It
then
tells
one other
they're
side
too
quest
obsessed with
question.
patents. They're too obsessed. So you don't know what claims you're going to get or not get. But
Yeah.
about creating value, you can fib a little bit or tell the truth. So let's say you have filed a utility or you filed a provisional and the attorney did it for you. Or you just talked to an attorney and they said, "Oh yeah, I think we can get you some solid claims there." You talk to an attorney, right? And so you can tell your potential licensee. You know, I talked to my patent attorney or agent if it's an agent, and they assured me that they think we can get some solid claims here. That's okay to say that. So that's the best you can do because it's just unknown, and they're going to make the assessment, but it's okay to say that if your attorney believes that.
One other question, if I can ask it. It seems this company has their own legal and IP people, like they file their own patents maybe somewhat regularly.
Hmm.
In the future, if I were wanting to file my patent, would it be very abnormal if they wanted to file it
No, you
for
don't
me?
want to ever do that.
No.
So,
Okay.
no,
That
you're
was my
going to work
question.
with your attorney to file it. If they have any input, they
Okay.
can let you know.
Okay.
But the patent is in your name,
Right.
and then the licensing contract gives them the right to rent it, to rent the innovation and to rent the patent. But
But if they
you're not
have
going to
the
let them run.
employees, okay. So if they have the employees who just bust out patents on a
That's very
regular
unusual.
basis,
Usually,
what?
that's very unusual. What
They're a
industry is it
big
in?
global situation. They're pretty
Okay,
big.
if it's big enough corporation, they might have their own IP attorney. Yeah, yeah.
And it just seemed like the cheap way to get one done, but also the riskiest way to get one done.
Because you're not
Dana's
saying to
shaking her
have it
head.
file under their name, you're still having it to do under your name, but as
It would be under
part of your
my
agreement,
name.
having them do the work is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, okay.
You may say it's the least expensive way to do it, but somehow, some way, they're gonna get the money back
It might
out.
be expensive. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, "Oh, we're gonna do it for free, no
Right. Just
problem.
it's on
We'll
our time.
spend
We got this.
we'll
Yeah,
spend
no
10,
problem.
15 grand
Okay.
to file
I
it,
don't
no
think
problem."
that's a
They're
bad
gonna
thing.
somehow along the way you're gonna pay.
But here's the key points. The patent's always under your name, and
Right.
the licensing contract gives them the right to use it,
Right.
never under their name. They start going
Yeah.
that direction, not good. But if they have any input, they can give you all that input, and you give it to your attorney and file it.
Yeah, it's in their IP's hands right, their IP department's hands right now. So they're looking at it, reviewing it. So I'm hoping any information I can get from at least that department would help me move forward in any
Have
which
you
way I
talked
go.
to the
So
marketing department yet? Or are you talking?
that's cool. That it seems like they go to their IP and lawyers and their market gap analysis happen at the same
Okay,
time.
that's fine.
So
That's all sounding good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
Yeah,
I
cool.
think we had some questions too, though, that you put in the email, kind of some things that we wanted to talk about. And I think
Oh,
one of them really caught my attention, Andrew, when you
Mhm.
said, like, just some talking points is how many times, and this is Chad can answer this one because he hasn't really said anything, so I feel bad for him because he's
No, you're good. Like I said, I'm just hanging out, letting
yeah.
Andy do his
But
thing.
one of
He
the
knows
things,
far more about IP
you
than I do.
know, we're Chad and I and Claudia and Brad, we reach out to companies all day long. I got into 2 pet companies today. All day long. That's what we do. We email, we LinkedIn message, we leave voicemails, we follow up with people. That's what we do. We have the gift of gab, I guess, huh? And so one of the questions that Andrew had brought up that we could maybe talk about, which I think is really interesting, is how many times have companies asked to see patents or any kind of protection, whether, well, they can't really see the provisional. I guess they can see the provisional patent application. I've had that happen a couple times. But Chad, why don't you share a little bit on that? Because
No,
I
they
think that was
can't see a provisional patent application unless you show it to them.
yeah, that's what I mean. And we have
Right.
done that.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, we get that so we get that pretty frequently actually. I get companies, I just had one this week where I had to get over the client's patent numbers for the company. So that happens pretty often. I mean, they're going to want to know right off the bat. Usually, I think another one of those questions was when, when they ask, and a lot of times that's right away. If that's something that's important to them, they're going to ask for, do you have any IP? And whether that's even a provisional, you can send over your provisional number, the provisional, the little, what is I can't remember how many digits, but you get a certain number from them. And then you can send that over, and then they did that with the design patent too. They asked for
They can't look it up
You can't
with
search
that
a
number.
provisional patent application by a number.
No,
Okay,
the
well,
only way
not the PPA.
the only way they could be done is if they lied and said they were you and then used the application number. It's possible, but
Yeah.
nobody's doing that.
right. Well, whatever the case with as far as the numbers, whatever information they provide, I know they did it on a design patent, but yeah, they'll ask for that all the time if it's covered
Yeah,
with.
and for the most part, let me know what you guys think, Chad and Dana, but for the most part, I think it's just, yes, the inventor has patent pending status and you move forward to talking about the product. I think when at the very beginning, all they want to do is talk about the intellectual property, that's a red flag. You go with the flow if you need to, but you try to redirect it back to the product, its benefits. Let's talk about the product. What do you like about the product? 100% of the time, you try to redirect the conversation to the product, its benefits, what do you like about it? And a good percentage of the time, they'll stop talking about the patent. You already said it's patent pending. They're good with that, and it will come up later.
Because
So
that was
that
another
is
question that
for the 26 years of doing this, it's better to redirect. Now, if they keep going back, patent, it's like, okay, let's talk about the patent. Like, but usually when they do that, they're one of these messed up companies like, oh, we only want issued patents. It's like, really? Like every time
You know what? I'm gonna, because we can disagree with you, Andrew. I can disagree with you.
you
I
can
think companies that want protection really aren't all snobby and I just want protection. I think that they just don't want to deal with the average inventor that hasn't put any skin in the game.
Yep, I
And
agree
when
with
an inventor comes to them and says, I filed a PPA or I have a patent, they take, you know what? They take us a little bit more serious.
no,
Well, from an
absolutely, but
outreach perspective, I think from an outreach perspective, if you come to them with your initial pitch and you say you don't have to go into the full disclosure, but I'll mention if it has some sort of protection.
Yeah.
And like Dana just said, that lets them know that you have skin in the game and that you've done your homework.
I
You're
agree.
Yeah.
further along in the
I,
process.
I agree with that 100%. What I'm talking about is after that with the conversation. You don't make a lot of inventors are so proud they have a patent. They make the whole conversation about the patent. It's like
Yeah,
that's not what you're
no.
selling. You're
No.
not selling your patent. And never say that by ever. Never ever say that. I want to sell you my patent.
No.
Well,
Never.
that's something I wanted to bring up that you talked about earlier too, is it all comes down to doing your due diligence. I mean, it reminds me of, I mean, say, whether you're going to get a patent or you're going to buy a new vehicle, you're going to go out there. I mean, they're out there to make money. These patent attorneys are out there to make money. It's up to you to do your due diligence. I mean, your IP is only going to be as good as the information that you give them. So if you haven't done your homework and you could spend $30,000 on a patent that doesn't protect you from anything,
Yeah.
so that's
So I've got some key things that I want to cover here in my notes, and then we'll answer Paul's question and do some of these other questions. But I want to go through some of these pretty quickly here. So it's important to understand prior art. A lot of people think prior art is just patents, but it's actually anything that's ever been shown ever publicly. So anything that's selling in the marketplace or prior patents. But it's very important for you to understand prior art, these other products that are out there, and all the patents. That's very, very important. Um, and the other tip, which is a weird little tip, but I talk to inventors all the time. They find another patent, they look at the picture, and they're freaking out. And I'm like, you can't go by that. So if you see a picture in the patent of the product or several pictures, you can't go by that. You got to look at the claims and you got to read through the claims. And claims are often very confusing. So I recommend that you read them I've given this advice many times before, like you have obsessive compulsive disorder. So that maybe the claim is 3 sentences and you read it and you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. And then you read it again and again and again. And like the fourth time you read it, it's like, let's say it's 3 sentences long. You're like, oh, they're just protecting that hook. Oh, well, that's not a problem. But don't just look at a freaking picture in a patent and go, oh my God, that's it. Because you don't know what they protected. What they protected is in the claims. Another mistake that people make is, is they don't realize it's not an issued patent. So when somebody files a utility patent, and it hasn't been reviewed by the patent office yet and hasn't been issued, it's going to look at all these claims. It's like, And so it's pending. So 18 months after you file a utility patent, it'll go public on the Patent Office website. Not a provisional, guys, but a patent. If you file a patent and the Patent Office has not got back to your attorney for what's called office actions, which is an argument between your patent attorney and the examiner, that's the way I explain office actions, it'll go public after 18 months, and you'll be able to search and find this patent. And you'll see this, and you're like, oh my God, they protected everything. Well, this is what they're trying to get, but the patent examiner hasn't said no, 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 okay, maybe, and it hasn't been reviewed yet. So understand the difference between a published patent after 18 months that has not been reviewed yet and an issued patent. Don't make that mistake, because I get a lot of inventors that are freaking out, and I'm like, this patent's not even issued. They're probably not going to get most of this stuff. It's relevant that you want to look at it. So, but look at other patents, look at what they're protecting. Very, very important. The other advice that we give, that we've been giving for 26 years, is steal the idea from yourself. Okay, well, this is a lot of inventors, they lose their creativity when it comes time to file their patent. Because some of you, you've been thinking about the idea for 2 or 3 years. This is what it is. This is what it is. Maybe you made some changes, but after a couple years or months, for some of you, you're like, this is what it is. And you got blinders on. And you can't do that when you're filing your provisional. You've maybe decided what the product is with regards to marketing, but when you file the provisional, you got to think about all the other versions. So knock yourself off. Go, hey, if I was a messed up company, how would I knock myself off? Well, I could do it like this, or I could do it like that, and I could get right around whatever they're protecting. Do that ahead of time. Throw that in your provisional. Throw that in your patent. Knock yourself off. I just want to get to some of these points so we can do some questions.
There was a hand up, but I don't know where he went.
So the other thing you want to do is, can your product be manufactured, and can it be manufactured cost effectively? So if the way you're making your product, if it can't hit those 2 points, you need to reinvent your product. Okay, you can make anything at a certain price, but if your product's going to be $500 and everything else in the space, there's nothing above $29.95, you're delusional, if it doesn't provide that much benefit. So can it be made, and can it be made at a reasonable price? Now, if your answer is, oh no, it can't, well, you got to reinvent it. And then that's what you're protecting, and then that's what you're marketing. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to give you another tip that provides, because tonight is about creating value and perceived protection to any potential licensee. Some of you have filed full utility patents. Some of them are issued. Some of them are pending. Some of them have been more than 18 months. They're not issued, but they could look at it and see it. You don't need to do this all the time. But if you want to look really protected and you want to be a little extra paranoid, let's say Carmel. This isn't the case, but I'm going to use it as an example because you're a nice smiling face. Let's say you have an issued utility patent. You're all proud. You're like, I got an issue. You're probably not doing that, but I got an issued utility patent, and it's in a difficult industry. Let's say it's a medical device. That's a difficult industry, or other co-founder Steven, he works in packaging, or you just want some extra protection. You're all proud of that. Well, you have an issued patent. They can look it up. They could look at it and go, ooh, how can we get around this? But if you want some additional protection, it only costs you $65. So you're like, well, why would I file a provisional? Andrew, I already filed a patent. Well, you could file a provisional, file it yourself for $65. Maybe there was something you forgot. Maybe it's not even anything significant. You just file it on some silly little extra thing. And you can now say you spent $65, patents pending. And if they look at your patent that you have issued or has been published that they can see, and now you say patents pending, they're like, oh, what else you got? And they're coming back to you. Well, what you got another patent? So this isn't required most of the time, but if you're new to this, you're either in a very difficult industry, or you're just a little extra paranoid, or what have you. You're a little worried they might get around you. Maybe you worried your attorney didn't do the perfect job, and you can file a provisional on those little extras. You can say patents pending for $65. So that's a great tip. Okay, so let's do some questions. I did have some questions here for Dana and Chad. I'm going to ask this one. Does the culture of the company make a difference? Have you found a real difference with regards to how much companies care about patents depending on the culture of the company or the industry? You talk about, Chad, maybe
Absolutely.
you talk about that.
Yeah, I think so. That greatly depends on the culture of the company, or just in general what they do. I would say that the majority of the companies that, from my experience in reaching out, that are interested in getting that patent, knowing whether or not you have a patent right away, are the big companies. But that's also not to say that all of the big companies are going to require a patent. I've had some very big companies that are just as casual or nonchalant as the smaller companies. Just, yeah, here's the email, send it over. We'll take a look at it. And I think that they understand the beginning part of the process, knowing that you have to cultivate interest first, so then maybe they'll have you sign, like, an NDA or something like that. But I think that they realize that there has to be initial interest before they get further into that discussion of how are we going to protect this and all that. And, kind of like Andrew was saying, that's something you don't really want to get into right off the bat. You know what I mean? About protection. It's just one of those hard negotiation points that, that it doesn't, it's not a good icebreaker.
Yeah. I'm going to say something to shock you guys. Don't be proud of your patent or your provisional. Don't be proud of it. Be proud of the things you're protecting in it, the individual things, that hinge, that cap, that thing that makes your product unique and marketable and that nobody else is doing, so you feel like you can protect it. You feel like the patent office will give you protection because nobody else has done that feature or that benefit before. Be proud of that. But when inventors tell me they're proud of their, I'm so, yeah, I can tell. They don't say I'm proud of my patent, but they're so proud they filed a patent, and I can tell they don't even know what they protected. Don't be proud of that. And if you have filed a patent and you don't know what the hell you protected with it, and you're just proud that the attorney said, hey, it issued, we got a patent, and you don't understand it, go back and go, dude, explain to me, like, these are the main features in my marketing. Which claims are showing that protection? Because if you want to provide value back to your potential licensee and talk intelligently, you need to know that. And so when a company asks you about your patent, that's a great opportunity. Remember I said, like, focus on the marketing, focus on the product, focus on the benefits. That's a great opportunity to talk about your patent, but also talk about the marketing. Say, yes, here are the key unique things about my product, and I protected those in my patent. So when they're getting patent obsessed and patent, and you're going to bring it back to the marketing, but you're going to say, yes, and I address these things in the patent. So you'll impress them both that you hit key unique selling benefits of your product and you also protected them. I don't think we've talked enough about this over our last 26 years, but I think the way I'm articulating this in a way that I've never articulated that, I like that we're talking about this. Very important. So don't be afraid, because some of you might be like, well, my patent attorney filed it. I can't talk about my patent. If you can talk about those key benefits and how your patent attorney protected it with these key claims, wow, you're going to look really freaking sharp to that company. And in a roundabout way, you're addressing their patent stuff. You're not avoiding it. Dana's like, well, don't avoid it, or Chad's saying don't avoid it if it's important to them, but you're bringing it back to the marketing part. Because in the end, they're not licensing your patent. They're licensing a product that has benefits that nobody else can offer, right? So
I'd like to address that question that you asked Chad, because right at the beginning, when we asked the question of how important or how many times have companies asked to see it, or when, see the protection or see the PPA or see the patent, you got to remember Chad and I work, all the Gators, the reach out team over here at inventRight. For anybody who doesn't know, we call ourselves the Gators. I made that up. I liked it. We need shirts, Gateway Gators. We all work in different industries. So if we have a client come in and they have a tool, I am not going to work on that. Chad is going to more than likely work on that. If somebody comes in and has a pet product, That's what I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on pet products. Chad may say he gets asked that a lot to see the protection. I'm going to say in the pet industry, I don't get that a lot. It's not that I haven't had people ask me. We have a client right now that the company is very, very interested in her product. And they specifically said, can we see the patent? They want to see. And, I mean, the client, we sent over the link to the numbers and everything so they could go. It's a granted utility patent, so we could send that over to the company because they wanted to see it, because that patent was important. But I honestly think that if I would have sent over that product and it would have only had a provisional patent application, they would have been completely okay with that too, because they just liked the product. And I think it's real important too to understand what should you even bother getting protection on. Some products, like novelty, things that are going to go in and out very, very quick, I don't really think that it's that. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you advice, but I would say if I had a quick novelty product that was going to come in and out very quickly, I probably wouldn't even file any protection on it. I just get it out there and blast out to as many companies as I can.
And that's not legal advice.
No, that's not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. That's why I didn't tell you what to do. I said if it was me.
But if you're new,
that's my way of getting out of it. If it was me,
if you're new to the game and you are doing a novelty, which usually you need to pitch a lot of, and you make friends with these novelty companies, it's not a standard consumer product, but more of a novelty. When you're getting used to it, you still might file a provisional. It's only $65. But you get to know this novelty company, and they're like, send me a bunch of ideas. And you're like, well, here's 8 ideas, or here's 5 ideas. And that might be a scenario in which you could forego the IP. We're not telling you to do that. Not legal advice, disclaimer. But that could be something practical that I see a lot of novelty inventors do. Products that won't earn huge amounts of money, maybe, but you want to show a lot of ideas to particular companies. That's fine. So Michelle says some industries' products don't require patents. So yeah, Michelle, that's exactly what Dana was just saying. I'm going to give you guys a scenario on how you can create value and twist a potential licensee's arm. I'll give you this little case study. So I had a member of ours, a student of ours that we were coaching, and they had a product that a company was interested. This company was in the United States. They sold about 70% of their product in the US, about 30% in Europe. Company said, we want to license this product, but we're not going to pay you in Europe because you don't have patents there. And I said, very simple solution to the inventor. I said, they sell 70% in the US, 30% in Europe. You have a US patent. Even big companies don't want to run around filing patents in Europe most of the time. So I said, great, go back to them. Say, hey, if you want the US rights, you have to pay me in Europe too. I don't care. I don't have a patent in Europe. Most companies don't even bother filing in Europe. My guess is you guys might not even either. So if you want to license this, you need to pay me in both. And they said, okay. So that was a very unique scenario. But the main thing that I want to go back to is really knock yourself off, understand other patents that are out there, knock yourself off to do the variation. Most of you have blinders on because you've been thinking about the idea for so long. Now you got to think about what are all the other versions. They're not the version you're trying to sell, but when you're trying to prevent other people from knocking you off, when you're writing your provisional, throw all those versions in there, right? Now, don't get obsessed. Throwing a version that's half as good as your version, where your version and your other new version that came up that's half as good, literally 50% as good, terrible, would be on the same shelf and nobody would buy that other version. If you start throwing crap like that in your provisional, you're getting obsessed and you're wasting your time. Now, if it's 70% as good, 90% as good, just as good, but not the version you want to pitch, that's good. But don't go throwing versions that would not compete with your version at all. Now you're getting obsessed. I've seen inventors spend 2-3 months working on their provisional and throwing versions that nobody would ever buy. Don't do that. You're just wasting your time when you do that. And did I write that quote before. Did I read that? It's not read, but write that quote. This is funny. Who said it? Somebody said basically, so what you're saying, Andrew, is do it right from the first time so you don't need to file a second one. I forget who said that. It was just their name was user. It didn't say who the name of the person was. Yeah. Oh, here. If we do what you just suggested, we wouldn't have to write and pay for a second patent. Now, if you're just filing a provisionally, doing it yourself, oh, it's another 65 bucks. But some of you spent 10 grand with a patent attorney. You want to spend another $10,000 because you didn't look at all the prior art, study the marketplace, come up with all the variations, workarounds, improvements. That's an expensive lesson. And inventors learn that lesson the hard way all the time. See it all the time. I see inventors that file patents and I'm like, wow, your product isn't marketable. You patented this non-marketable product. Now, but then I look at the product, I'm like, well, you could change your invention like this, and this. And not only would it be patentable, but it'd be a marketable product. Now that 10 grand or 8 grand, or if you're going with Kevin Prince, only 5 grand, was a complete and utter waste of money. Don't do that to yourself. And when you get interest from a company, they're going to see that, but they're not even going to ask you about your patent because they're going to see the product's not marketable, right? So you got to create value with your intellectual property, with your patent, which starts with the product itself. And don't be proud that you got a patent. Be proud that you protected the important parts about your product so nobody else can do it. Know what you're protecting and give your attorney the information to protect it properly, and then ask them, show me the claims that protect these features. And if you're filing the provisional yourself for 65, good on you. That's what we recommend doing. Make sure you're doing all this same stuff. And you don't have to write claims when you're writing a provisional, but you have to talk about these variations of the product and show pictures. Paula, are you raising your hand or just... No? Okay. Just go like this if anybody wants to raise their hand. I can't see the second page. Oh, nobody's on video. If anybody has a question, raise your hand. I'd be happy to unmute you. Dana, is there any more? Average cost of the large firm is 20,000. Yeah, isn't that ridiculous, guys?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to my earlier point. Maybe only 5% of you have a product where you should even consider going with a large firm and paying that kind of money. Maybe 3%.
Yeah, I think too, another really important thing to do is to, certain lawyers specialize, if you're going that route, if you want to write a PPA on inventRight for what, $199, you can get the software, write your own PPA. We walk you through it. It's great. It's super simple. My 13-year-old grandson could write a PPA with our software. It's so easy. You're just telling a story about your product, right? So, but if you are wanting to get a firm or some kind of lawyer, I would want to really make sure that they understand that industry that your product is in. That's really important, that they understand the industry that your product is in. And one thing about bigger firms is that they might have a lot of different lawyers that work in different areas. Like, I know Gene Quinn is really like technology is Gene Quinn's thing, so that's super important. And then the other thing that I think that a lot of people don't know is that you can go to a patent practitioner as opposed to a patent lawyer. A patent practitioner is going to probably be a bit more inexpensive. I don't know how much. And I believe I heard Kevin Prince say, because he's a patent practitioner, the only difference is a patent practitioner cannot litigate in court.
Right. Which you guys will never need.
That, yeah, because, if you do license your product idea to a company, if you end up getting a patent on it, the company that you license it to is gonna, if they, for some reason, infringe on somebody's patent down the road, the company may, I mean, it's technically not their product, but
I got a good question from Richard here. Richard says, has anyone gotten into this? I love this question. Has anyone gotten in the psyche of what companies fear when it comes to patents? So I'm going to tell you a story here. I'll keep it super short. I had this one member of ours, a coaching student, and they were going back and forth with this company that was showing interest for like 2 months. They never talked about patents once. And this particular company was the biggest player in the space in this category. And the inventor said to the company, said, we haven't talked about patents. Do you guys want to do a patent on this? And they said this word for word. They rarely would ever say this, but word for word, they might feel this way. But in this case, they said it word for word. When he said, you want to do a patent on this? They said, we don't care about patents. You can do a patent if you want to.
Yeah.
We're the largest player on the block. We will crush the competition with our pricing and our distribution. And the inventor was educated by us. Most inventors would freak out and get upset. He's like, I loved it. It was great. I think he ended up redoing the provisional again, then seeing how it went. I forget. I didn't check in with him. But I'm not saying most companies feel like that. Some companies are obsessed about patents. You will never license a medical device without a patent. Okay? But companies that fear the ability to get intellectual property in most categories are probably not the right company for you. Because I like this attitude of this company. We'll crush them with our competition, with our distribution, and our pricing. I love that. Now, other companies are somewhere in between. They're like, we really believe in the product, but we want some intellectual property too. So that's why it's important, the topic today, creating value. I'm not saying you don't want to build value. I'm not saying you don't want a strong patent, but don't think that if that's what it's all about and they get too obsessed with it and they're not in one of these really difficult industries where they're justified to be obsessed with it, like medical devices, I am worried about their confidence in the product and its benefits. Or they just have some weird feelings about patents within the company. I want them to be so confident in the benefits that they're like, yeah, we might get some claims, not others, but we just believe in the product so much it's not all about the patent. And if that makes sense. So I love that question, Richard. Thank you. There's a lot in here. I don't know if we can get to all of them because we only got.
I was looking at our YouTube channel. There's like quite a few.
Oh.
There's tons of stuff in there, but there's just too many.
I didn't
At
even
this
get.
point now,
we should
there's
do at least
yeah, I
one
know.
question from there.
Yeah.
You can see the question. I thought only I could see them.
Oh, I just go to our YouTube channel. I can see them. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so we only have a few minutes left, but Carmel has a question.
Yeah.
Carmel or Carmel? Sorry, I botched that.
Sure, people ask her that all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Hey.
How do we say it right?
So this is off Joaquin Brenson's post. And just because I have a similar question, he says, if your product is unique to the market, but you have found other claims that have other patents that have a matching patent claim, is it worth pursuing a patent, or how do you kind of work around that?
Well, first of all, I mean, I would really evaluate whether that claim is really a problem.
Okay.
And so first of all, is the patent issued? Don't make that mistake that I made that some inventors trip. They're like, oh, they got all these claims. I'm like, that's not an issued patent. They didn't get that yet. Okay, that's unusual, but I do see that sometimes. So first validate it's an issued patent. I would say when I have an inventor, one of our members that we're coaching, and they show me a patent that's of concern, I would say 75% of the time, I'm like, we can work around this. We can get around this. Like, let's just get around that one claim and do it another way. And here's what you could, and they're like, oh, okay. Now, a lot of you are thinking that, well, then people can get around me. No, not if you thought about the workarounds, variations, improvements, but most inventors that have filed patents with their patent attorney, the inventor did not go to the patent attorney and say, here's my product, and here's all the variations, workarounds, improvements. Almost none of them did that. And then a lot of patent attorneys, if they were good, they would say, give me the workarounds, variations, improvements. That's your job as an inventor. But they don't do that because the inventors falsely think, oh, this is your job. You gotta figure that. No, it's not. So there's tons and tons. This is a great way to wind up this webinar. Tons and tons and tons and tons of patents that are garbage, absolute garbage. Some intellectual property experts say like up to 75% of all patents are weak to complete garbage. Now, so you got to analyze that claim, figure out if it makes sense. If you need to talk to an attorney, be very articulate because it costs money to talk to an attorney, right? Go, here's my sell sheet, here's my invention, here's the claim. Could I easily get around this? You know, but a lot of times that requires an inventor's mind. Like, well, okay, they're just protecting the hook. So if I don't use the hook and I use this other thing, that claim was so specific, I'm around it. And don't freak out that everybody can get around your invention now, because if you thought about all those variations, workarounds, people can't do that to you. But most inventors and most patent attorneys aren't doing that, and that's why you can get around their stuff. Does that make sense? So that's a great, very empowering way to look at it. But it's hard to understand those claims sometimes. So going back to what I said before, and I'm not beating up anybody that have the obsessive compulsive disorder, but read the three, let's say it's 3 sentences. You read it. You read it again, and you're like, oh, okay, it's just the hook. Hopefully you're going to understand what the hell they're talking about. But hopefully that's helpful. We're 3 minutes past. I want to end up on time here, guys. Got a lot of great questions. Chad, is there anything you want to say in closing with the patent stuff? You're doing the outreach, kind of put things into perspective for people, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. You pretty much covered it, Andrew. I don't think there was a point that you didn't touch on. I like Stephanie's comment. She said this whole live was so mind-numbingly helpful.
Mind-numbingly, because patents suck to talk about them.
Oh God, I hate talking about patents.
I'm in the same boat. I'm no expert on patents. I reach out. I agree. I think it's important to protect yourself. I think you should do your due diligence. I think that there's a lot of ways that you can save money. I think you can file the provisional. When I did my provisional, I didn't hire anybody to do my line drawings. My 17-year-old daughter's an artist. She did them for me. She did a great job. I submitted them for that. Just like with your prototypes and stuff, there's ways that you can get around it, and you don't have to go out and blow the bank on this stuff. You know what I mean? Especially when you're testing the waters. So do your due diligence, do your research, make sure that any information that you're giving over to these patent attorneys, that it's good, solid information, and that you're following up and protecting yourself.
I'm going to comment on the mind-numbing thing because I got a funny story here. Just experience. I ran an inventors group for 14 years, been doing inventRight for 26 years. Every inventor is like, yeah, I got to go patents. And then they show up to a webinar or a live seminar, or whatever it is we're doing. And like 15 minutes into it, they're like, everybody thinks patents are the most important. It's the freaking boringest part of the whole thing. I think I made it a lot more fun with the way we approached it. I could have approached it from a very antiseptic, very, this is about as exciting as it gets.
You could have made it dull, Andrew?
I could have made it a lot more dull, trust me, if we got into all the detailed patent questions. But it's stuff you need to know still. So,
I think I'd just like to end on a note for everybody who can't afford to get a patent, doesn't want to get a patent, doesn't want to go down that road, doesn't know if they need to. Definitely get a provisional patent application for sure. You want that patent pending status. You want that patent. It shows. The thing is with patent pending status is at first they don't really know where you're at, because until you have an issued utility patent, you still have patent pending status. So you could have filed or not filed. They may ask, they may not ask. But in the big scheme of things, and I'm sure Chad will agree, we're the ones that reach out to companies every day. And there is a very, very small percentage that care about patents.
I agree with that. I think most of them, they just want a good idea. They just want to know that you're a professional inventor.
Yep.
I think that it's not a huge deal for them. The majority of them. So like I said, just make sure you're doing your due diligence. You don't have to go out and blow a ton of money on
But
this.
it,
No.
yeah, but you also said, Dana, it does create an aura of professionalism.
Well, and from
When you
our
can leave
side,
with-
not only the professionalism, but so from the outreach side, is that gives you value right there. The fact that you can put that on your sell sheet. Are you gonna go run some company down and go after them for copyright infringement? I don't have the money to do that, and most inventors don't have the money to do that either. But the fact that it shows that you're professional, and it shows that value that, you know, when they're initially looking at it, and it takes a little bit of that risk and liability off their plate to at least evaluate your product.
Yeah,
Maybe
when you
all that
guys are
stuff later down the
pitching,
road, you
you
know,
guys are mentioning patent pending all the time. You
always.
say
Yeah.
it all ad nauseum all the time.
Actually, I usually don't mention patent pending in my pitch. I will mention a patent though.
Well, and then like you said, that's even an industry difference, because I know most of the tool companies, if it's anything that's, you know, most of them are going to ask for it. So I might as well just do
Most
it.
of the tool companies, if you don't have patent pending status, it can be
Yeah.
provisional.
At least a
Won't
PPA.
even look at stuff.
I just don't put it in my message to them. You know, they if they, you know, they're going to see it when they open the sell sheet. It says patent pending on it. But if it
Chad
has a
does,
patent on it, I'm going to either say it's a published utility patent, issued utility patent, or an issued design patent.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
definitely putting that in there. So, but again, just so you don't think that you need to run out and get a patent and wait 2 or 3 years and spend $10 or $15 just to get into that one dream company that you want to get into, because you might waste a lot of time and a lot of money to try to get into that company and they're not even interested in your product anyway. File the provisional, you know, again, not legal advice. Have a provisional patent application so you can say patent pending.
Yeah.
They're probably, you know, 95% of companies that you're reaching out to are going to be completely okay with just the provisional
And
patent.
if they do rip you off, let Dana know. She'll go bang on their door for you.
Right. I'll go get them. Chad and I will go get them. They don't want to mess with us.
All right, guys. We'll
Okay.
end on
Please
that
leave
note.
with
That was
us.
a good note to end on.
That's right.
All right.
We'll end on that note.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
everybody.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Keep inventing. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, everybody.